When we think about champions like Lee Sin or Khazix, very specific ways of teamfighting probably come to mind. For Lee Sin, we often have big dreams of landing that perfect inset kick, putting the enemy carry right into your team's arms and starting the teamfight off with a huge engage. Khazix, we envision something like this, where we can just play leapfrog on everyone's heads and get resets all day long. But unfortunately, this isn't really how a lot of your teamfights are going to go. Many players make the mistake of overforcing plays like this just because they're fed. Teamfighting as a jungler is often just difficult. It's the role where your part isn't prescribed from champion select. An ADC, for example, really only has to follow a few general rules for the most part. 1. Do damage. 2. Don't take damage for free. And this lends itself to wanting to position front to back, behind your front line, and generally just prioritizes your own safety over a lot of other things. Jungle, however, has a ton of different kinds of champions, from tanks to assassins to ranged ADCs, and even supports. So this same type of advice just doesn't work for the role. But today I'm here to tell you that the champion you pick doesn't really describe how you need to teamfight. Rather, it's the champions around you that matter the most. The stereotypes that certain champions have often get broken and require you to play in ways that are counterintuitive to what you might initially expect. Let's explore this more and jump right in. We're starting out with a Khazix replay, and we're not going to tell you whether it's coming from low elo or high elo. We want you to watch and try to guess at the end. With two teammates dead on both sides, this fight is a 3v3. The enemy team starts up Dragon, and Khazix walks forward to contest. He spaces around Thresh and does damage to him initially before changing his attention to the enemy jungler and the Dragon. He kills Talon and secures the Drake before exiting with help from Lulu. So, was this fight low elo or high elo? And how are you supposed to tell? This fight was in fact from Challenger. Let's go ahead and go over the things that Khazix did that made that apparent. Khazix had a very good understanding of how his teammates and the enemy champions needed to play in order to function. Twitch and Lulu are ranged champions that need to have space in order to perform. Basically, if Talon hops the wall and is able to get in melee range, that's bad news. Same goes for if Thresh is able to hook and catches either one of them out. Due to this, Khazix's entire role shifts from someone who wants to go in and try to assassinate a carry, to just being someone who wants to move the fight forward and allow his Twitch and Lulu to participate in the fight. He basically plays this exactly the same way that a tank would want to play it. If you swap Khazix out for Sejuani, the exact same principles would apply. If Sejuani would dive too deep to try and go on Kai'Sa, Talon can just go straight for Twitch, so you can't overdive and ditch your backline. And if she didn't want to walk forward, then Twitch and Lulu wouldn't be allowed to enter, and the Dragon would never be contestable in the first place, as Twitch would never be able to participate. The point is that the jungle champ you're playing here really doesn't matter that much. Most junglers are very adaptive and can fill multiple roles within a fight. You just need to identify what that role is. And in this case, you're acting as a frontliner, even if you are a squishy assassin champ. This versatility and willingness to switch his role is the main giveaway for this being high elo. If we go back to the replay, he has W evolve, something that a lot of lower elo Khazixes don't go into level 16. And this is so that he can help to zone and actually be a threat from range to create space, similarly to how a tank would just by being a big meatball with tons of HP running at your carry. As he walks up, he's holding his skills, not committing his leap just so that he can create pressure. And you can see that the enemies have to respect it and back up, leaving Talon in the pit and giving enough room for Twitch to kill the pink and actually get into range to go after Talon. Plenty of players have a rigid mindset when it comes to their champion's role and will dive in without a second's thought. But there are going to be tons of situations where you just simply can't do damage at all, even if you are fed. Let's take a look at a Lee Sin replay from a coaching session I had with one of our subscribers. In this first fight, his team is setting up Dragon and trying to prevent the enemy team from walking in. Unfortunately, he takes a Thresh hook and ends up dying at the start of the fight. Unsurprisingly, the fight goes south and they lose pretty convincingly. But what was the main issue, and how could he play it better? It's worth noting that he is extremely fed and ahead of the curve on items for sure. He needed to play this much slower, and not even be in range of the Thresh engage in the first place. How fed he is has zero impact on his role in these fights. Both comps operate very similarly. If you look at the main damage dealers of both teams, it becomes clear very quickly what they want to do. Both sides have long range poke and zone control. Things like Rumble ult and Seraphine ult work best when champions are clustered up and running towards you. The same is true for Victor with his laser, Jinx with long-range rockets, and Gangplank and Varus with barrels and Q-poke. Just think about how easy it is for Victor to teamfight when everyone is walking into range of all his abilities, versus how useless he is when he has to run to chase down a bunch of targets that are far away, or he's getting flanked and dove on. Essentially, both sides want the other to be forced to come into them so they can land their damage without being threatened themselves. But obviously, both sides can't dive into each other. Only one will get that advantage. What determines that is the vision setup. Because our team was first to Dragon, the enemy is now required to walk into an unwarded area and face check, or they risk losing the objective altogether. Knowing that what's behind us is safe is valuable when it comes to kiting back and contesting space. This is why Thresh even ended up taking so much damage at the start. If we had just disengaged the fight and slowly conceded our space while waiting for cooldowns at this point, the enemy would have to do the same thing again and walk into all of our damage. At some point, they would just run out of health to trade for progress moving forward and would probably be forced back. The only way we lose is if a fight is actually engaged, and obviously, Lee can't really contribute much in a poke war besides Qs here and there. But his role is to just be a body that helps his team kite backwards. He never actually needs to go in unless big damage lands. We can see how the fight works when his backline is allowed to just kite back and doesn't get threatened by enemy Jinx rockets or Victor lasers. Lee really doesn't do much in this fight, but that's fine. It's just his job to punish those that overextend and not overextend himself. Let's move on to later in the game at a Baron fight, where the enemy team starts it up and now we're the ones that are forced to contest. It's critical here to remember your role in a team fight and not be tempted to dive in onto the backline. We want to take the free Rumble ulti and just disengage. Without it, Varus, Gangplank, and Seraphine will be under no threat, and the enemy team really can't do anything to stop their poke. Unfortunately, Varus does this and Trey's using his flash, but the point still stands. If we had just played a disengage, the fight goes smoothly, and even if Leona dies, they can't do Baron. Going forward just a minute, we are provided the opportunity to set up the Baron ourselves and get our vision down. Remember that this is what allows us to play the fight slowly and kite backwards. I instruct him to just play outside of the choke point and avoid the Rumble ulti, and sure enough, while Rumble ults the choke, it doesn't pressure anyone except Leona. At this point, Jinx is extremely vulnerable and has to deal with running through a Gangplank ult, Varus Qs, and a potential Seraphine R. By just identifying how your team needs to play and doing nothing, you actually play the team fight perfectly sometimes. Jinx dies to a Varus Q and Lee lands Q on Thresh. At this point, we actually do want to dive in. If you were paying attention earlier, you might have noticed a teleport coming in from behind our team. While this potentially makes a flank something we have to worry about, with Jinx dead, if we now try really hard to push the fight forwards, there will only be 3 people on one side that we need to deal with, and that will surely collapse to our team of 5. While it is important to recognize when you need to play a fight slowly, it's equally important to recognize the trigger to actually go in and do something. After all, doing literally nothing for an entire fight is probably never optimal. Patience waiting for a time to strike is the idea. While he was a bit hesitant going in here, I'll take some responsibility since I was basically telling him to not do anything for most of these fights. With this team fight, he's able to secure the Baron and the Dragon, and now since we have a significant advantage, we can finally use that big lead that we have to do fun Lee Sin things. With Jax pushing top and having Baron, we want to pressure, so now it's time to go kick a carry into our team. His role has shifted once again, showing that you really just need to be ready to adapt if you want to be a good team fighter. The point of this guide is to show how teamfight roles aren't just prescribed for junglers. It's often very hard to tell what you need to do until you analyze team comps and know who's a threat on your team and theirs during the game based on items as well as summoner spells. Even so, things will change constantly based on the game state, and champions that are known to be insane engagers or assassins might find themselves not fulfilling that stereotypical role. It's important to just keep thinking about how you should play each teamfight before it starts, and then be ready to adjust when things inevitably change. League of Legends is a complicated game, I'm sure we can all agree on that, and there's definitely no way to show how to perfectly play every situation, but hopefully we got you thinking about the times where you need to just slow down your fights, and wait for things to happen sometimes. You don't have to do everything.
So you might be asking yourself, why go to SkillCapped.com to improve when I could just watch YouTube guides or play the game? Well, let me show you. Let's say you're a jungler who's struggling to climb the ladder. Not only would you get over 40 site-exclusive courses for jungle, but maybe really what you've been struggling with is ganking as a jungler. Well, we got you covered with 4 different courses breaking down how to gank when you're jungling. Not only do we have the largest catalog of guides for League of Legends in the entire world with over 1,500 videos to watch, but these are then curated by the top coaches and players into courses on every skill and topic you need to master in order to truly improve and climb the ladder. If all of this wasn't enough, we haven't even touched on our catalog of over 700 Smurf commentaries, where a challenger expert shows you how to climb out of your rank and you're guaranteed to get any questions answered by them directly. Not to mention, we're the only service to offer a rank improvement guarantee. If you don't climb at least 5 divisions while actively using SkillCapped, you can claim a refund, no questions asked. So what are you waiting for? Head to SkillCapped.com and get the rank you've always wanted. Link in the description below.
Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.